Yo, what's good? I need you to sit with me for a minute. I got a story to tell you, a real story about my community, about Lincoln Heights, Ohio, about where I'm from, and why what happened on February 7th, 2025 ain't gonna break us. It's actually gonna make us stronger. Together. See, they thought they could roll through our neighborhood with swastikas and hate and tear us apart, make us turn on each other, make us scared, make us divided. But what they don't understand is you can't break something that's been fighting for over 100 years, and you damn sure can't divide people who know their history and know that survival means sticking together. So let me tell you that history. Let me tell you why we're still here, and let me tell you why this moment right now, this is our chance to show the world what real unity looks like, what real community looks like, what happens when people refuse to let hate divide them. Where we come from, the foundation of unity. Picture this, it's the early 1900s. Black men in Gainesville, Georgia, getting run out of town by white mobs in the middle of the night. Literal lynch mobs. They hopped on trains heading north with nothing but the clothes on their backs and one promise to themselves, their kids would never have to run like that again. They came to Cincinnati in the 1920s, came to work at the Wright Aeronautical Plant, at factories in the Mill Creek Valley, at the Tennessee Fertilizer Company, at chemical plants. Good jobs, industrial jobs, the kind that could build a future, the kind that could buy a house, raise a family, send your kids to college. But there was a problem. They had nowhere to live. Cincinnati's West End was segregated, overcrowded, and straight up deadly. Corrupt landlords charging triple what they should, disease spreading because of overcrowding, crime born from desperation. The KKK was on the rise for a second time, and surrounding towns, Laughlin, Wyoming, Reading, they were sundown towns. You know what that means? Black folks couldn't even be there after dark. Literal fences separated black neighborhoods from white ones. Signs that said colored and white. Redlining that made sure you couldn't buy property anywhere decent. Our people were building Cincinnati, working in its factories, cleaning its homes, raising its children. But Cincinnati wasn't built for them. So our great-great-grandparents did what black people have always done when the system fails us. They built their own damn community. Together. The beginning. Building together from nothing. October 20th, 1923. That's the date. Remember it. That's when the Haley Livingston Land Company out of Chicago started selling land to black families in what they called the Cincinnati Industrial Subdivision. The first residents to move in were Sadie and William Gooch and Allie and Peter Finch. Two families taking a chance, building something new. The land was 47.5 acres divided into 355 lots, 3.5 streets, Bales, Simmons, Steffens, and half of Shumard. And check this, the land they sold us, it was basically empty plots. No pavement, no curbs, no sidewalks, no gutters, no utilities, no storm drains, no space for schools or stores or churches, no parks, nothing. Some houses didn't even have electricity, no fire department, no police, no street lights. At night, it was pitch black. When it rained, the streets turned to mud. The developers did that on purpose. They knew black families had limited options, so they sold us land white families would never accept, land nobody else wanted. But you know what? Our people bought it anyway, because it was the only land they could buy. And then, and this is the important part, they didn't complain, they didn't give up, they didn't turn on each other and fight over scraps. They got to work together. Through the Works Progress Administration, they organized to get water and sewage. They pooled their money. They helped each other build. If your neighbor needed help putting up walls, you helped. If someone's roof leaked, the community fixed it. If a family was short on money, others pitched in. This wasn't just about building houses. This was about building community. This was about showing that when black people work together, we can create something beautiful out of nothing. They lobbied, they fought, they petitioned to incorporate as a real city in 1939. They wanted to be more than just an unincorporated area. They wanted the right to govern themselves, to collect taxes, to provide services, to build schools and parks, and have their own police and fire departments. They wanted dignity, and they wanted it together. But here's where the story gets real. Here's where you see how the system works to keep us divided and powerless. Our people wanted to incorporate with the industrial land where they worked, especially the Wright Aeronautical Plant. That factory was right there. Our people worked there. That tax base should have been ours. That's how cities work. The workers and the businesses that employ them share a tax base to build schools, roads, services. Hamilton County said no. The manager at Wright Aeronautical filed an objection. He literally put it in writing. He didn't want the factory to be in a majority black city. Read that again. He didn't want black people to have access to the tax revenue that their labor was generating. Laughlin residents filed an objection too. Minutes before the deadline, they didn't want competition from a black business district. They wanted to make sure black dollars couldn't stay in black hands. And while our application got delayed over and over and over, white communities moved fast, real fast. Woodlawn Incorporated, taking the western portion of what should have been ours. Evendale Incorporated in 1949 with only 289 residents, and they got the right aeronautical plant, 289 people. Less than 300, but they got the factory where thousands of black workers labored every day. The land our people lived beside the factories where they worked. The tax base that should have funded our schools, our roads, our future. All annexed by white towns. They did this to keep us weak. They did this to keep us poor. They did this because they knew that if black people had resources and unity, we'd be unstoppable. Lincoln Heights finally incorporated on June 18, 1941. But by then, we got about 10% of what we originally proposed, stripped of our tax base, set up to fail from day one. Carl Westmoreland, who founded the National Underground Railroad Museum and grew up in Lincoln Heights, said it best. It was on life support from the very beginning, and it was on life support with dignity. That word, dignity. Hold on to that. Because even when they tried to destroy us, even when they stole from us, even when they set us up to fail, we held on to our dignity. We held on to each other. We stayed unified. The golden years, what unity built. Now here's what they don't want you to know. Here's the part they leave out of the history books. Despite everything, despite the theft, despite the racism, despite being set up to fail from day one, despite having only 10% of our intended size, Lincoln Heights thrived. Let me say that again louder for the people in the back. We thrived. From after World War II through the 1960s, we were incredible. By the 1970s, we had over 6,000 residents. We were the largest, predominantly black city in America. Not one of the largest, the largest. And check what we had. 2 grocery stores where you could shop and know the owner by name, a pharmacy run by someone from the community. Our own high school, Lincoln Heights High School, producing scholars and athletes who went on to HBCUS and major universities, fire and police departments staffed by our own people. 2 skating rinks where we took our first dates and learned to dance. A movie theater showing the latest films, nightlife venues with live music, nightclubs where you could go out after work and see your neighbors, hear good music, feel alive, dozens of businesses, repair shops, beauty salons, barber shops, restaurants, a bus line, construction companies. We even had our own EMS. The black dollar circulated in Lincoln Heights. You could get your hair cut by a black barber, buy your groceries from a black store owner, get your car fixed by a black mechanic, see a black doctor, be protected by black police officers, have your house fire put out by black firefighters, and send your kids to school with black teachers. This was a complete black ecosystem. Self-sustaining, self-governing, self-determined. Governor Thomas Dewey of New York brought our leaders to the Macy's Day Parade in 1950 to show the world that all black communities could not just survive, but thrive. He wanted New York City residents to see proof that black people could govern themselves successfully. Lincoln Heights was the second wealthiest black community in the country during the 1960s and early 1970s, second wealthiest. Let that sink in. We were Black Wall Street. We were what Tulsa was before they burned it down in 1921, but we lasted longer. We built more. We showed them what was possible. The legends we produced. And the people we produced? The legends that came out of Lincoln Heights. Nikki Giovanni, one of the most famous poets in the world. When you study African American literature in college, you study her work. She grew up right here, the Isley Brothers. You know them. Shout, Twist and Shout, This Old Heart of Mine, R&B soul legends, and you know. In the 1970s and 80s, factories started closing. American manufacturing jobs went overseas. NAFTA and trade policies sent good union jobs to Mexico, to China, to anywhere labor was cheaper. The whole industrial Midwest collapsed. They call it the Rust Belt now. But here's the difference. White communities around us had diverse tax bases. They had retail, they had offices, they had that industrial land we should have had. When factories closed, they had other sources of revenue we didn't, because they'd stolen ours back in 1941, because they'd set us up to fail from the beginning. When GE Aviation jobs left, That's what Wright Aeronautical became. Our economic engine was destroyed. Young people went to college and never came back because there were no jobs here. Businesses closed because people didn't have money to spend. Our population dropped from over 7,000 to 4,805 by 1990. And you know what happens when poverty hits a community, when jobs disappear, when hope starts to fade? That's when the vultures circle. The war on drugs, dividing us from within. Then came the crack epidemic. The 1980s and 90s saw crack cocaine tear through black communities everywhere. You know the story. The CIA looked the other way while drugs flooded into black neighborhoods. The same government that would later spend billions on the opioid crisis with treatment and compassion showed zero mercy when it was crack destroying black families. Lincoln Heights wasn't spared. The crack epidemic hit us hard, real hard. Carlton Collins from the Heights movement wrote, "An incredible amount of people, particularly young males, were lost to the criminal justice system when illicit drugs tore through America. The 1994 crime bill accelerated mass incarceration. 3 strikes you're out, mandatory minimums, different sentencing for crack versus powder cocaine. Even though they're the same drug, our young men disappeared into prisons. Fathers taken from children, sons taken from mothers, families destroyed, communities traumatized. And this is where they really tried to divide us. They tried to make us think it was our fault. They tried to make us think our sons were just criminals. They tried to make us turn on each other. The good people versus the bad people. The people who made it versus the people who didn't try hard enough. But you know what? The community held on. People who could have left stayed. Grandmothers raised grandchildren when parents were incarcerated. Neighbors looked out for each other's kids. Churches provided food and support. We didn't abandon each other even when it would have been easier to leave. By the 2000s and 2010s, the drug problem shifted. Crack and marijuana gave way to heroin around 2012. Violence followed. In 2013 alone, 9 shootings, 4 homicides. In a village of a few thousand people, Police Chief Conroy Chance said in 2014, "We police the way that big cities police." Think about that. A tiny village, policing like a major city. That's what poverty and abandonment do to a community. People set police cars on fire in 1993 and 2001. In 1998, someone broke into the police station and set it on fire, causing $100,000 in damages. That same night, the village hall and police cars were shot at. In 2010, someone fired at a Sharonville police officer during a chase. This wasn't random violence. This was the sound of a community in pain. A community that had been systematically abandoned, stripped of resources, and then blamed for the chaos that resulted. The final blow, losing our autonomy. And then came 2014, the year everything changed again. An investigation uncovered serious corruption in the Lincoln Heights Police Department officers who'd been convicted of crimes but still got promoted. Officers in biker gangs, the Made Men and ground assassins, showing up in uniform to support gang members charged with felonies, a $240,000 settlement with residents who were beaten and wrongfully arrested, 23 lawsuits for wrongful arrest, civil rights violations, harassment, wrongful terminations. Marcus Simpson, one of our residents, said it straight. Corruption, it's embedded in Lincoln Heights. They need a house cleaning. The only way to get rid of the cancer is to cut it out. All of it. On October 2nd, 2014, our insurance company dropped us because of all the lawsuits against the police. Public Entities Pool of Ohio said the financial impact was too much. Both the police and fire departments shut down overnight. The fire department reopened days later. The police department never did. Lincoln Heights, the first self-governing black city north of the Mason-Dixon line, lost control of its own policing. That autonomy our great-grandparents fought for in 1923, that self-governance they sacrificed for, gone. The Hamilton County Sheriff's Office took over. Some people felt safer. They didn't trust the corrupt police department we had. So when masked neo-Nazis rolled up to Lincoln Heights on February 7th, 2025, it wasn't random. They didn't pick us by accident. They chose the first self-governing black community north of the Mason-Dixon line. They chose a place with a 100-year history of resistance. They chose a community that had survived everything America could throw at it, and they thought we'd be an easy target. They thought a community that had been beaten down for a century would just take it. They thought we were too broken, too poor, too divided to fight back. They were wrong. They showed up around 3 p.m. on Friday afternoon, about a dozen of them, maybe more, riding in the back of a U-Haul truck, which is illegal, by the way. They set up on the highway overpass between Evendale and Lincoln Heights, right at our doorstep. They waved swastika flags, black flags with red swastikas. They dropped a banner with a skull and the words, "America for the white man." They were armed, some had rifles, they wore masks, and they started shouting the N-word at our people, at black folks driving home from work, at kids getting off school buses. Eric Ruffin, a local business owner, was driving home from a meeting. One of them walked up to his car window with a swastika flag, with a gun, called him the N-word to his face. This was at 3 p.m. on a Friday. Children were getting out of school. The police response. Who are they protecting? And the police? Evendale Police and Hamilton County Sheriff's deputies responded. They showed up and they protected the Nazis. Let me tell you what happened. The police created a barrier between the Nazis and the Lincoln Heights residents who came out to confront them. The barrier protected the Nazis, not us, them. No arrests were made, no IDs were checked, no one asked them to remove their masks. No citations for riding illegally in the back of a U-Haul, nothing. At 2:58 p.m., an Evendale police officer led the U-Haul full of Nazis onto Lockland Elementary School property. Minutes before dismissal, security footage shows them organizing their weapons on school grounds. At 3:02 p.m., they leave. At 3:06 p.m., children walk out the doors. The school was never notified, no lockdown, no 911 call. Kids walking out to Nazis with guns who just left the property. Superintendent Bob Longworth said it straight. The group of people that were traveling in the U-Haul, we refer to them as terrorists. But it gets worse after the Nazis left. After police escorted them to safety, an Evendale officer brought one of them back into Lincoln Heights in his police cruiser, back into the terrorized community. You know why? To get a dog, a service dog left in a vehicle. So let me get this straight. You protect armed Nazis, you escort them to safety, you don't get their names, you don't arrest them for breaking multiple laws, and then you bring one of them back into the community they just terrorized to get a dog? I get it. Get them away so that none of my brothers and my sisters get hurt, said resident Cyretha Brown. But once you got them that far away, not only did you not run a name, you brought somebody back to get a dog. The investigation, excellent de-escalation. 4 months of investigation, $70,000 for an independent review. The Hamilton County Prosecutor's Office looked into it. The conclusion, officers showed excellent de-escalation skills. No charges would be filed against the Nazis. Prosecutor Connie Pillich said law enforcement's immediate priority was to de-escalate the situation and prevent violence, a goal they achieved. So protecting Nazis who came to terrorize a black community with swastika flags and racial slurs, that's excellent policing. But when black men stand at bus stops protecting their own children, that's concerning. That's potentially problematic. That might be a militia. You see the double standard? Mayor Antoinette Kinsey Mumphrey asked the questions we were all thinking. What African Americans like me will never understand is why the Nazis were treated with a level of respect and familiarity rarely shown to our community. Why were the Nazis not asked to identify themselves when the first thing an African American must do in a traffic stop is provide identification? Why were the Nazis not asked to remove their masks? We all know why. We've always known why. The community rises, unified. But here's what happened next. Here's where the real story begins. Here's where you see what unity looks like when it's tested. On February 7th itself, when the Nazis first appeared, about 20 or more community members broke through police barricades. They rushed toward the hate group and they grabbed one of those swastika flags and they burned it. Videos captured residents stomping on the charred remains, shouting, "Hitler been dead. Y'all living in the 40s. After the flag was reduced to ash, someone used bullets to spell out LH for Lincoln Heights. That wasn't violence. That wasn't chaos. That was unity. That was a community saying together, not here, not today, not ever. Within hours of the Nazis leaving, members of the Heights movement made a decision. The Heights movement, this is the same organization that had been building innovation centers, mentoring youth, renovating abandoned buildings, fighting for economic justice, showing up to council meetings. These were the people already doing the work, already serving the community. They formed the Lincoln Heights Safety and Watch program. About 70 armed volunteers now patrol our streets. They wake up before before sunrise. They stand at bus stops before dawn to make sure our kids get to school safely. They monitor entry points into the village. They wear tactical vests and face coverings, not to hide from neighbors, but to protect themselves from retaliation by hate groups who might try to dox them or target their families. I've never felt safer as a black man in my community than I have right now, Daniel said. These are my friends. These are my cousins, my brothers, my sisters, my aunties. Read that again. This isn't some outside militia. This isn't strangers with guns. This is Jay, who coaches Little League. This is the guy who owns the repair shop on the corner. This is somebody's uncle who's been mentoring kids for 20 years. This is people you know, people you trust, people who've been serving this community their whole lives throughout the town. Yard signs proclaim, "We support Lincoln Heights, safety and watch." One volunteer who asked to remain anonymous said it perfectly. It's just something that our grandfathers and our great-grandmothers, they started this, so we're going to make sure that that history stays intact. Durrance Daniels' grandfather, Elbert Lee Daniels, was born in Lincoln Heights in 1927. Before he died, he issued a challenge to his grandson and to the community. Lincoln Heights was built for the black man, by the black man, and if y'all don't get your shit together, you will kill it. The Safety and Watch program is the answer to that challenge. It's about honoring our ancestors. It's about protecting our legacy. It's about refusing to be the generation that let Lincoln Heights die. 2 weeks later, they came again. And you know what proved that the Safety Watch was necessary? 2 weeks after the Nazi rally, on a Sunday, someone distributed Ku Klux Klan leaflets throughout Lincoln Heights. Racist pamphlets in our streets. "You get punched," said Alandez Powell, a nonprofit director who lives near town, "and someone comes and punches you again." A man was cited for littering after being found with the leaflets littering. That's it. Not terroristic threatening, not hate crimes, littering. The message was clear: you're still not safe. We can still get to you, and the authorities will do nothing. But the community didn't panic. The Safety Watch kept patrolling. Residents kept looking out for each other. Life continued. Because we refused to live in fear. Carlton Collins, 36, from the Heights movement said, "In some ways, it's muscle memory for us." Muscle memory. That's what survival becomes after 100 years. You don't even think about it. You just do what needs to be done, together. Now look, I know there's been some controversy. Some people are concerned. The Hamilton County Sheriff, Charmaine McGuffey, said she doesn't support what she called a neighborhood militia. Some business owners have complained about being stopped and questioned. There have been some tense encounters. And you know what? Those concerns are valid too. This is complicated. There's no perfect answer here. Real life isn't simple. Some residents feel safer with the Safety Watch. Others feel safer with the county sheriff. Some people support both. Some have concerns about both. And that's okay. That's real. That's what it means to be a community. We don't all have to agree on every solution, but here's what we do need to agree on. We will not let this divide us. The Nazis came here to divide us, to scare us, to make us fight each other, to make us turn on our neighbors, to make some people feel like they need to choose sides. Are you with the Safety Watch or against them? Are you pro-police or anti-police? Are you radical or moderate? That's the trap. That's what they want. They want us arguing with each other while they plan their next attack. We can't fall for it. We can't let them win. What unity looks like in practice. Real unity means having hard conversations. It means listening to people who have different experiences than you. It means recognizing that the Safety Watch and the Sheriff's Office aren't enemies. They're both trying to protect the same community. It means understanding that Eric Ruffin can say, "What I don't understand is how I can be standing here in America in 2025 and somebody can walk up to my window with a swastika and have guns and call me the N-word and law enforcement watch, and also say, we don't want to become what we hate. You know, we don't want to become a group of people that walk around feeling like we have a reason in America to have to protect ourselves." Both things are true. He's right to be angry about police inaction. He's right to support the Safety Watch, and he's right to have concerns about armed patrols becoming permanent. All of that can be true at once. Unity means making space for complexity, for nuance, for people who are figuring this out in real time because nobody gave us a handbook for how to respond. When Nazis show up in your neighborhood in 2025, Dominic Bruton Jr., who patrols with the Safety Watch as an unarmed member, said, "When we saw that the police weren't helping us, every able-bodied man in the neighborhood, with or without a gun, has stood guard and has been standing guard ever since." And then he added, I would for sure rather rely on the police. He said it's a bad thing for everybody that residents have to patrol their own streets. You hear that? He's out there patrolling, protecting his community, and he wishes he didn't have to. That's not a contradiction. That's honesty. That's someone grappling with a bad situation and doing what needs to be done while acknowledging it shouldn't be necessary. That's what real unity sounds like. The spirit that sustains us. See, what the Nazis didn't understand, what people looking at us from the outside don't understand, is that this isn't new for us. This is what we've always done. When they sold us land with no infrastructure in 1923, we built it ourselves, together. When they delayed our incorporation to steal our tax base, we fought for years and incorporated anyway together. When they stripped us of our economic engine, we built businesses and supported each other, together. When the crack epidemic hit, when mass incarceration took our sons, when the police department closed, when home values plummeted, we stayed, we held on. Together, we've been protecting ourselves since 1923. The Safety and Watch program isn't something new. It's just the latest version of what we've always been, a community that refuses to abandon each other. Pastor Julian Cook of Lincoln Heights Missionary Baptist Church said it best. I pass them daily as I head to and fro. And it's important to remember that they have arisen out of a need, not out of a desire for violence, not out of hate, out of a need to protect our children when the people who are supposed to protect them won't. What togetherness built before. Look at what we accomplished when we stood together. In the 1950s through the 1970s, when we were unified, when black dollars circulated in black hands, when we supported each other, we became the second wealthiest black community in America. We produced Olympic gold medalists, Grammy winners, poets, civil rights leaders, professional athletes, doctors, teachers, artists, musicians who changed the world. We had everything we needed because we built it together. Every business supported the next. Every family looked out for their neighbor. Every achievement was a community achievement. That's what unity built. That's what's possible when we choose each other. And when we started to fracture, when economic desperation led to crime, when drugs divided families, when some people left and others stayed, when trust broke down, that's when we became vulnerable. That's when we lost ground. The lesson is clear. Unity is our strength. Division is our weakness, and our enemies know it. What togetherness can build now. Imagine if we took the energy and passion and commitment we've seen since February 7th and channeled it into unity. Imagine if the Safety Watch volunteers and the sheriff's deputies worked together instead of being pitted against each other, sharing information, coordinating patrols, respecting each other's role in keeping the community safe. Imagine if young people and elders sat down together, the young bringing energy and new ideas, the elders bringing wisdom and historical context, not dismissing each other, but learning from each other. Imagine if people with resources helped neighbors who are struggling, not with judgment, but with love, jobs programs, tutoring, childcare, whatever people need. Imagine if we had community conversations about safety and policing where everyone's voice was heard, where we could debate without destroying, where we could disagree without dividing. Imagine if we looked at that 100 years of history and said, our ancestors survived because they chose each other. We'll not only survive, but thrive the same way. That's the Lincoln Heights I want to build. That's the community I know is possible because we've done it before. A message to the young people. Listen, I know it's hard. I know you look around and see poverty, hear gunfire, watch people struggle, and wonder if it's even worth staying. I know you see the news, and it feels like the whole world is against us. I know you see Nazis showing up in 2025 and think, are we moving forward or backward? I get it, I feel it too. But giving up is exactly what they want. Leaving is what they expect. Turning on each other is what they hope for. Your great-great-grandparents bought land with no infrastructure and built a community from nothing. Your grandparents lost their tax base and still created the second wealthiest black community in America. Your parents survived crack, mass incarceration, economic collapse, and the loss of self-governance. They held on. They stayed, they fought. You come from people who chose unity over division every single time. That's your DNA. That's your legacy. Don't let Nazis, don't let anyone take that from you. You want to honor your ancestors, build with your neighbors, support local businesses, mentor someone younger, learn from someone older, show up to community meetings, speak up when you see injustice, stand up when someone needs defending, be the generation that brings Lincoln Heights back. Not back to what it was, but forward to what it can be. A model of Black unity, Black power, Black excellence. The world is watching. Show them what we're made of. A message to the elders. You've seen this community through its highest highs and lowest lows. You remember when we had 7,000 residents and the streets were full of life. You remember when the Isley brothers walked these streets and the Lincoln Heights Tigers won state championships. You remember what we were capable of when we stood together. The young people need your wisdom. They need your stories. They need to know that what they're feeling isn't new and that we've survived worse because we stayed unified. But they also need you to trust them, to support their energy and innovation, to recognize that the tactics might look different, armed patrols instead of church meetings, but the spirit is the same: protection, resistance, community. When you see young men in tactical vests standing at bus stops, remember, they're doing what you did in 1923 when you built this place from nothing. They're doing what you did in the 1950s when you created businesses and schools. They're doing what you did in 2014 when the police department closed and you had to figure out how to stay safe. They're being you. Different methods, same spirit. Trust them, guide them, stand with them. Together, we can show the next generation what Lincoln Heights really means. Not just survival, but strength. Not just resistance, but resilience. Not just community, but unity. Whether you were born here or moved here, whether you've been here for decades or years, whether you agree with the safety watch or have concerns, whether you trust the sheriff or you don't, whether you're radical or moderate, young or old, struggling or stable. If you love Lincoln Heights, then you love what it represents. Black self-governance, Black dignity, Black survival, Black unity. That love means choosing each other every single day. It means supporting local businesses even when Amazon is easier. Showing up to community meetings even when you're tired. Checking on neighbors even when you're busy. Mentoring young people even when they don't seem interested. Respecting elders even when you disagree with them. Having hard conversations with love instead of anger. Standing up against hate while standing together as a community. It means recognizing that we're all on the same side. The people trying to divide us are our enemies. The people in this community, even when we disagree, even when we frustrate each other, even when we make mistakes, they're our family. Our strength has never been in agreeing on everything. Our strength has been in refusing to abandon each other. So let's choose unity. Let's choose community. Let's choose each other every single day. The path forward. The Nazis came thinking they'd scare us, thinking they'd divide us, thinking we were too broken to fight back. They didn't understand that you can't scare people who've been fighting for 100 years. You can't divide people who know their history. You can't break a community that chooses unity. We burned their flag. We spelled out LH with bullets. We formed the safety watch. We put up signs. We showed up for each other. That's who we are. That's who we've always been. Now the question is, what comes next? I'll tell you what I hope comes next. I hope we use this as a catalyst, not just for protection, but for transformation. I hope we channel this energy into economic development, into supporting Black-owned businesses, into creating jobs for our young people, into building wealth that stays in our community. I hope we channel it into education, into making sure every child in Lincoln Heights knows their history, knows they come from strength, knows they're part of something bigger than themselves. I hope we channel it into healing, into addressing the trauma of poverty, of gunfire, of mass incarceration, of being abandoned by every system that was supposed to help us. I hope we channel it into political power, into making sure our voices are heard at the county level, the state level, the federal level, into demanding the resources and respect we deserve. But most of all, I hope we channel it into unity, into refusing to let external forces divide us, into holding space for different perspectives while staying committed to the same goal, protecting and empowering our community. The watch continues, but it's all of us. Every morning, volunteers wake up before sunrise. They put on vests, they pick up rifles, they stand at bus stops, but they're not just watching for Nazis. They're watching for each other. They're protecting a legacy. They're honoring ancestors. they're building a future. And here's what I want you to understand. The Watch isn't just 70 armed volunteers. The Watch is all of us. Every resident who puts up a sign is part of the Watch. Every parent who talks to their kids about unity is part of the Watch. Every business owner who supports the community is part of the Watch. Every elder who shares wisdom is part of the Watch. Every young person who chooses to stay and build is part of the Watch. We're all watching. We're all protecting. We're all Lincoln Heights. The legacy continues. Carolyn Smith, Lincoln Heights native, said, "You fight for what you want." And that's what Lincoln Heights was all about. You fight for what you want. Our great-grandparents fought for land. Our grandparents fought for prosperity. Our parents fought for survival. We fight for unity. We fight for dignity. We fight for a future where our kids don't have to fight the same battles, and we do it together. Because Lincoln Heights was built for Black people, by Black people. And we're not letting anyone, not Nazis, not the system, not our own internal divisions, destroy what our ancestors built. They tried to steal our land. We persisted together. They tried to steal our wealth. We persisted together. They tried to steal our autonomy. We persisted together. They tried to terrorize us. We unified. That's the legacy. That's the story. That's who we are. The final word. To everyone watching Lincoln Heights right now, the media, the neighboring communities, the politicians, the police, the people trying to figure out if we're going to make it, here's what you need to understand. We've been counted out before. We've been written off. We've been declared dead on arrival since 1941 when they stole our tax base. We've been struggling since 1923 when they sold us land with no infrastructure. But we're still here, not because we're perfect, not because the system suddenly started working for us, but because when it mattered most, we chose each other. We chose unity over division. We chose community over individualism. We chose to stay and fight rather than abandon ship. And we're choosing each other again. The Safety and Watch program isn't the end of the story, it's the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter where we remember that our power comes from unity, where we stop waiting for the system to save us and start saving ourselves together, where we look at 100 years of resistance and say, we're not just surviving anymore. We're building, we're thriving, we're showing the world what's possible when Black communities refuse to be divided. Lincoln Heights isn't just a place, it's a principle. It's proof. It's a promise that no matter what they throw at us, we'll face it together. They can take our resources, but they can't take our unity. They can steal our wealth, but they can't steal our dignity. They can try to terrorize us, but they can't break our spirit. They can doubt us, but they can't stop us. Not when we stand together. Because we are Lincoln Heights. We are the descendants of people who fled lynch mobs and built communities. We are the children of people who were denied everything and created wealth. We are the legacy of people who lost their police department and kept their dignity. We are the proof that Black self-governance works when we stand together. We are the evidence that unity is our superpower. We are mothers and fathers waking up before dawn to protect our children. We are young people who choose to stay and build instead of leaving. We are elders who remember what we were and envision what we can be. We are business owners who invest in community over profit. We are teachers and coaches and mentors shaping the next generation. We are the volunteers standing at bus stops, the residents putting up signs, the families choosing each other every day. We are Lincoln Heights, strong, united, unbreakable, and we're not going anywhere. This is our moment. Right now, in 2025, the world is watching. They want to know, will Lincoln Heights survive? Will we let hate win? Will we turn on each other? I'm here to tell you, we already know the answer. We've known it for 100 years. We will survive. We will resist. We will thrive together. Not because it's easy, not because the system will suddenly start helping us, but because unity is in our DNA, because choosing each other is what we do, because this is Lincoln Heights, and Lincoln Heights doesn't quit. So to the Nazis who thought they could scare us, you picked the wrong community. To the system that's failed us for a century, we don't need you anymore. We got us. To anyone doubting whether we'll make it, watch and learn. To everyone in Lincoln Heights, thank you for choosing unity. Thank you for choosing community. Thank you for choosing each other. The watch continues. Every morning, the sun rises over Lincoln Heights, and every morning, people choose unity. They choose to stand at bus stops protecting children. They choose to support local businesses. They choose to mentor the next generation. They choose to have hard conversations with love. They choose to honor their ancestors by building their future. They choose Lincoln Heights. That's our story. That's our present. That's our future. Together, always together. From 1923 to 2025 and beyond, the watch continues. Lincoln Heights, built for us, by us, protected by us. Unity is our foundation. Community is our strength. Each other is our answer, and we're just getting started. Peace, love, unity, Lincoln Heights, forever.